Hey everyone, welcome. Won't you come and sit for a spell? Let me show you how to make a creep wreath and some other creepy things as well. Now let's get started. Now, all products are from the Dollar Tree and very easy to make. I'm sure everyone has seen the wooden arrow with the jute hanger on it from the Dollar Tree. I just give it a nice coat of burnt umber, and I cut the jute hanger off because I decided to use a different hanger. And I'm sure everyone has seen the galvanized Halloween signs, the beware, the haunted, and the spooky. Well, this is the beware, and I didn't want it galvanized, so I painted it black. And I'm going to hot glue it to our Dollar Tree arrow that I have taken and distressed with some white Waverly chalk paint. Now, my wreath form is a willow wreath form from the Dollar Tree. I've already had this. It was already spray painted black from a previous project, so that made it easier. So I'm just going to take some Spanish moss and hot glue it all around the top of our wreath form. And doesn't have to be perfect. Just put as much on there as you want or as little as you like. You can also use whatever wreath form that you like as well. This is one that I just so happen to have. And now those skull faces was from a previous project that I'm crafting my stash. And just so happened I had two left, so I'm just gluing them on here with our creepy crawlers. Not all creepy crawlers were black, so the ones that wasn't, I took and painted with my black chalk paint. And I'm going to take our arrow sign and I'm going to run some black ribbon through it because that's how I want to attach it to our wreath. And I just do so by running it up through the back of the branches and tying it in a couple of knots to secure it. And then I take another piece of black ribbon and tie it onto some of the branches at the top of the wreath, and that's going to be our hanger to display our creep wreath. Now, we're not quite finished because I have a set of the skeleton hand tongs, and I'm going to take my miter saw and cut the tongs at the joint. And I'm going to keep those two pieces that I cut off, and we're going to use them for another project you'll see coming up. But these, I wanted to make them just a little more creepy than they were. So I decided I was going to paint them. And I did. I painted them a brown and a few colors. And then I decided, well, I don't like that. So I took some Mod Podge and some toilet paper and decided to go that route. So I just Mod Podged the toilet paper all over the skeleton tong. Wrapped it all over the fingers, and I took a skewer to poke it through because, you know, it's a very narrow opening, so I could get the toilet paper wrapped around the little fingers, bony fingers, as best as I can. If it ripped, oh well, that was fine. So I set it to the side and let them dry. Well, I went on and painted one, and now the other one I'm going to paint. I used 5 different paints. I used 2 browns, a black, a red, I think a yellow orchard, and I just went, you know, distressing them back and forth, mixing the colors, just painting them on there however I thought it looked good. And I think they turned out great. You can paint these gray, black, white, whatever color you want to paint them. I just thought that the texture made it look a whole lot better than just the plain tongs. And I'm just going to secure them with some hot glue onto our wreath and show you what they look like from the back and is from the front as well. And I think it turned out great. I love it. That's why I call it the creep wreath. And I hope you like the creep wreath and you'll consider trying to make you one as well for your next Halloween. Oh, and I ended up finding some more spider rings that I had got from the Dollar Tree, the orange and purple ones. And I just cut the ring part off and painted them with some black chalk paint. And I'm gluing them onto the creep wreath as well. And here it is. It's ready, and I'm getting ready to put it on my door. Okay, guys, this DIY is probably one of my absolute favorites. My witch doctor staff, voodoo staff, whatever you want to call it. Um, First, you take a Dollar Tree plunger, and I wrap the top of it with some brown jute twine already. And I took some leather ribbon I had and tied it all the way around the bottom up to the jute twine where I left off. Now I have a Dollar Tree skull, and all I did was take a X-Acto knife and cut a big X into the bottom of the skull under the mouth, and that's where we're going to place our skull on our plunger when we're finished dressing up our plunger or staff now at this point. You can see here at this point I'm already done wrapping our leather lace to the bottom of our plunger, and I just adhered it with some hot glue. Now I'm going to take my folk art black chalkboard paint, and I'm going to paint my skull head all over completely black. And I just needed like one coat because that's my absolute favorite chalk paint. I love that black folk art chalkboard paint. Okay, when I'm done painting this, I'm going to set it to the side, and I've got some feathers that I already had in my stash, and I took some beads that I had, some really pretty beads with some designs on them, and I put them on the ends of our feather, and I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to wrap some jute around the end of each of our feather, like 6 feathers I believe in all. Then I'm going to leave about a couple of inches of jute left onto the end of the feather and just cut it off and lay it to the side. Like I said, I'm going to do 6 of those like that. Put some beads on and some jute and set them to the side, because I'm going to end up tying them around our plunger at the base of our skull head. Okay, when I finished with the feathers, I ended up tying them onto a string of the leather and lace, and made like a little garland with them, like I said. And now I'm going to take some of my white paint and distress the skull head with it, and darken up his eyes and his nose with some black chalk paint, and put some black chalk paint in some of his cracks and crevices. And then he'll be ready for his mohawk. We're going to take our X-Acto knife and cut some slits into the top of our skull head. And we're going to take some more feathers of the same color as our feather garland that we made. And we're going to stick them down in the top of his head. You see, we're going to give him a feather mohawk. And now it's time to take our feather garland right here and wrap it around the base of our plunger, our staff stick, right at the top of our jute twine. And then we're going to take some old, dried, clean wishbones that I had, and I tied them all together, and we're going to add them at the base with our feather garland as well. And he's already looking cool. Check him out. And his head is attached now. I didn't even put no hot glue on his head. Just stuck him down in there, and his head stayed, and he was fine. He was straight. But here he is, our voodoo witch doctor head, staff rather. Now, He needs a home, and I don't just want to lay him down on the table or attach him to a wall. So I think I'm going to make him a really cool urn, really cool vase to sit him in. So I had this big glass vase. I spray painted black, and then I took some more feathers and made another garland with them, except for this time I added some beads in between the feathers and some little plastic skull heads I had from the Dollar Tree. As you can see here, I just took some scissors and poked holes on each side of the skull heads and ran them through there and made us a skull garland that we could wrap around the top of our urn with it for our staff. Okay, so after I get my skull garland tied around our urn for our staff, I'm just going to tie a couple good knots right here. And I made some skull and crossbones that I painted black and distressed white like the skull, as you can see here. And I tied them together with some jute. And that's from our previous project, our skull tongs from the creep wreath that I told you we'd be using here shortly. And I decided that my skulls was too white and I needed to dirty them up with some black chalk paint. And here he is. I think that he's cool as hell. And you know, my daughter said that he looked like I went and took him from, I stole the staff from a tribe, a voodoo tribe or a witch doctor, a real one. And that made me feel good, you know. And I do think he's cool as hell. I hope you guys like him too. I know my kids are my biggest supporters, my biggest fans. I love them to death. They love everything that I do, just about. I set him here at the floor so I could show off, you know, my creepy corner, my creepy shelf that I talk about in a lot of my other videos. Because a lot of these items on the creepy corner in the creepy shelf are in previous DIYs, like the voodoo doll and some of the potions and ingredients and the crystal ball and stuff. But anyway, I hope you like the creepy voodoo staff, witch doctor staff, whatever you want to call it. And he's so fun. He is so much fun. And I hope you think he's fun too, especially with his lucky wishbones. And thanks, guys. And on to the final and last creepy DIY, which is going to be our spider skull sack. Is that right? Spider sack with a skull in it, I think. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I'm taking my X-Acto knife and I cut a hole out in the bottom of our skull head here. And I had this light here from some of those glitter pumpkins from the Dollar Tree because I used them in a prior DIY, and I kept the lights. So I just took and hot glued it into the skull because I want him to light up. Now, I'm not going to give him much detail because he's going to be wrapped in a cheesecloth, but I am going to darken his eyes and his nose, his mouth, and some of the cracks in his skull. And after that, I have an old cheesecloth that I set and stained in some tea and let dry that I'm going to wrap him up in. You'll see here shortly. Okay, so now you can see I wrapped him in the cheesecloth, and once I got him in there how I wanted him, I just took and some hot glue and put it like on his chin to secure the cloth so it wouldn't slide anymore. And then just took another piece of the cheesecloth and tied a knot around him where he'd be just this little sack. Now, these are the last of my creepy crawlers. I had 3 spiders left, so I'm going to glue them onto the cheesecloth, kind of wrap some of the pieces of cheesecloth around them. And then I have a great big spider that was one of the spider skeletons from the Dollar Tree that I had for a couple of years because he's already painted black, and I had paper mache'd his abdomen and painted it black as well. And he was ready to go. So like I said, he's from my stash and from my old Halloween, and I end up gluing him at the top of our spider sack. And I also just took some cheesecloth and tied another little knot at the top just to make a hanger. So this was simple, easy, quick, easy breezy. Skull, spiders, and a cheesecloth. And that's all you need. And a light if you want him to light up. And this is a creepy, fun Halloween, quick Halloween, last moment type of deal if you need one. You know what I'm saying? And I just hung him in a corner out by my front door, as you're going to see here in a minute. He's out there with the creep wreath and the doorbell and our creepy lantern. And they're not all together. I would show you, but at the moment I'm in the process of trying to move. But anyway, here it is, finished. There's our big black spider I told you about, and here he is lit up in the hall. Check him out. I think he's cool as hell, and I hope you think he's cool as hell too, and just as creepy. And I hope you guys have a safe, happy Halloween, and don't forget to wear your mask, and please social distance, and get out there and vote. Please vote, vote, vote. Let's make a difference. Thanks, guys, for watching, and see you later.